I'm going to demonstrate two different pieces of simulation equipment, Heliodon and the artificial sky. Has anybody used the Heliodon before? Great. Anyone used the artificial sky before? Perfect. Okay, great. Very different simulation tools, not to be confused with each other. The Heliodon is simulating the path of the sun around your site, and it's simulating sunshine and shadows. It's not looking at illuminance levels or the colour of the light or the quality of the light. Okay? The artificial sky, is looking at daylight factor. So the artificial sky is not simulating direct sun at all. So they're two different simulation tools that complement each other. So our Heliodon is the version where the site moves, the table moves, and our sun stays in the same place. And our sun is the projector over there. Okay. The projector works very well because it gives a very bright light and it's quite a parallel beam of light, which works well for simulating the sun. Okay, so the first thing you need to note about the Heliodon is it needs to be in the right place, and there are some markings on the floor to show its location, and the projector needs to be in the right place too. If you're not sure, you can always ask Peter Lathy or Puyan, and they'll help you to set it up. Sometimes it's not in position, just to make room. Okay? If you don't have it in the right position, you'll get some very strange results from it. So that's important. Then, generally, the thing to do is to get the table set up and then put your model on it. Now, what I'm going to do is just spin it around so that we can see the first setting, and then we'll put it back. Okay. So the first setting, which is here, is your latitude. So really important. If you put the wrong latitude on, your results will be completely misleading. So in the UK, in Sheffield, we're at 53 degrees. So we just undo this lever, and we angle our site to the correct latitude. Okay. Now we then have another setting, which I'm going to show now while the camera is facing it, and then we'll put it back into position. You can all see it later. And this is the time of the year. So we've got winter, equinox, and summer. And there are some settings in between, but to be honest, normally those three will do you. There's only the equinoxes, 22nd of March, 22nd of September are exactly the same, so don't worry about simulating both. They'll give you the same results. Okay, so I'll put the table back now, and then we'll get a model on it. So you can see the markings on the floor, the little white markings. Just make sure it's in the right place. Okay. Okay, so we're then going to get our model. And you need to orientate the model. Oops. Thank you. Thanks. You need to orientate the model correctly. North is at the top on the Heliodon, south. So put your model in the right orientation. And we've got these clamps just to hold the model in place. If you have a thin model, you can actually clamp it down, or just use the clamps to hold it in place. And just be careful, because you are going to start spinning this table around, and if you're not careful, your beautiful model can fall off. Okay. In terms of the model, it doesn't really matter what it's made out of for the Heliodon. It doesn't have to be the most pristine model either. But often students will make one site model which is good for presentations and also good for the Heliodon. So this, this is a good example where the students made quite a nice site model with some plywood and just some quite quick massing forms. and their proposed building is made out of foam, and I've only got one option here, but they made several different options that they could test. Okay, so let's turn our sun on. So we've now got, that's our sun, simulating direct sun with shadows onto our site. We're currently set at the equinox, and in fact, we'll leave that on there for now. And by turning the model around, you can simulate the passage of time throughout the day. So we're at 9 o'clock in the morning, 12 noon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and relative to the sun, we get a shadow pattern around the site. Okay. Any questions on the basic setup? Okay, great. So in terms of methodology, you need to record the results, and what often works very well is to use one of the step ladders, borrow a camera, and take images. So every time you change the direction of the sun, take a photograph. What I find helpful to remember what you're recording is just to put a little piece of card into the image saying, winter, the time of the day, any other comments that you've got, just so that otherwise you end up with a lot of photographs. It's quite hard to remember what they're showing. So often the photographs taken from directly above are very useful. Then change the time of the day, take another shot. Or if you were looking at any specific issues on the site, you might want to be taking photographs at an angle to the model. And it's normally very useful when you're using the Heliodon to have in mind if there are any issues on the site that you're specifically looking to test. So in this model, for example, you might be concerned about, let's say, the impact of our new building on the existing facades here. And that might be an issue that you're kind of particularly looking out for. You might take photographs of that, move the model, take more photographs. Let's just change the time of the year. So if we go to winter, obviously we've got much longer shadows. So we've got noon at winter, and we could look for that specific issue and kind of test that. We might be looking at the impact of the overshadowing on our building from the existing buildings. So if we go into the middle of summer now, we've got a much more direct overhead sun. This is where you need to be slightly careful that your model doesn't fall off. If you've got a very heavy model, they can fall off. But as you can see, it's fine. And on this model, we can spin it around different times of the day as before. Okay. And one approach that can be very successful is to use the Heliodon for quick testing of massing options. So rather than bringing the Heliodon with a sort of finished design when it's too late, make a sort of quick massing model and maybe make a few options of it and test one option, record it, then perhaps you have a different option, test that one and record it, and look at the sort of impact on the site, on the surrounding buildings, and look at the overshadowing that you're receiving on your building as well. That's quite important, that if you're going to use the Heliodon as a design tool, you need to be willing to make some design changes. And that's why if you bring a sort of highly finished model, you'd be very reluctant to start cutting into it, which is why the sort of foam and cardboard models can be very successful.